De la Chienti Hon Chin Theo Dun Yu Kwa Kwa Ban. My mother raised her champagne glass and smiled at more than 50 relatives gathered around my grandfather's birthday banquet. Then she said the sentence that stopped my heart. If there is one daughter who has made this family proud, it is Rebecca. The room erupted into applause. My sister lowered her eyes with practiced humility. My father beamed beside her. My grandfather forced a smile. And I sat alone at the far end of the table, invisible once again. What nobody in that room knew was that 3 weeks earlier, Rebecca had accidentally sent me a voice message that would destroy the story my family had spent 25 years building. My name is Hannah Brooks. I am 30 years old. For most of my life, I was known by a different title. The mistake. That word was never officially spoken. It didn't need to be. Families have 1,000 ways to communicate rejection without ever saying it aloud. I was born nearly 2 months early during a stormy autumn night in Portland, Oregon. My lungs were underdeveloped. I spent weeks in intensive care. The medical bills nearly buried my young parents beneath debt. My mother never forgot that. Unfortunately, she never let me forget it either. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every family gathering, the story returned. Hannah almost bankrupted us before she could even open her eyes. Everyone laughed. I learned to laugh too. Children become experts at pretending pain is funny. My older sister Rebecca was different. Confident. Beautiful. Charismatic. The kind of person who walked into a room and instantly became the center of attention. If Rebecca earned average grades, my parents celebrated with dinner at expensive restaurants. When I graduated at the top of my class, my mother forgot to attend the ceremony. I remember standing on the stage holding my certificate while scanning the audience. Every seat seemed occupied except the ones meant for my family. That memory still lived inside me like a scar that never fully healed. The unfairness grew worse as we got older. When I was 15, my grandfather's antique pocket watch disappeared during a family gathering. Rebecca cried. She said she had seen me near his study. That was all it took. I was accused in front of relatives. Questioned. Humiliated. My mother demanded an apology. I gave one through tears. 2 weeks later, the watch was discovered inside a storage box Rebecca had been using. Nobody apologized. Not one person. Life moved on. Except for me. Some wounds stay frozen in time. At 18, I left home with a scholarship and 2 part-time jobs. While my parents paid every expense for Rebecca's prestigious business program, I worked mornings, evenings, weekends, whenever someone offered a shift. 5 exhausting years later, I earned my accounting degree without owing a single dollar. Again, nobody came to graduation. But something unexpected happened afterward. The overlooked daughter began building a life. Slowly. Quietly. While my family ignored me, I launched a small online consulting business helping local entrepreneurs manage finances. 1 client became 10. 10 became 50. 50 became hundreds. Within a few years, the company was generating more income than anyone in my family could have imagined. I never told them. Not because I was hiding. Because they never asked. Whenever relatives discussed careers, Rebecca dominated every conversation. She claimed she had earned a prestigious MBA. She spoke about leadership conferences, executive training programs, and business strategies. Everyone admired her. Everyone believed her. Including me. Until 3 months ago. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was reviewing financial reports in my office when an old university contact called. We chatted about work, mutual acquaintances, and former classmates. Then he casually mentioned Rebecca. His words made my stomach tighten. Funny thing, he said. I always thought your sister would return and finish her MBA. I stared at the phone. Return? There was a pause. Yeah. She left during her first year. The room suddenly felt smaller. The air felt heavier. My pulse quickened. Rebecca had spent nearly a decade telling everyone she had graduated. Yet according to someone who had been there, she never finished. When the call ended, I sat motionless. Outside my office window, rain tapped softly against the glass. Inside, 25 years of memories began rearranging themselves. The accusations. The favoritism. The lies. For the first time in my life, a terrifying possibility entered my mind. What if the daughter everyone admired wasn't who she claimed to be? And what if the daughter everyone dismissed knew exactly how to uncover the truth? That afternoon, I opened my laptop. I typed Rebecca's name into a graduate registry database. Then I pressed search. Everything changed. The search results appeared in less than 3 seconds. Sometimes a life can change that quickly. I stared at my computer screen while rain slid down the office windows in silver streams. Rebecca Brooks. No degree. No graduation record. No MBA. I refreshed the page twice. Then a third time. The answer remained unchanged. My sister had spent nearly 10 years building her identity around an achievement that never existed. A strange feeling settled over me. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Something colder. The sensation of discovering the first crack in a dam that had stood for decades. For several minutes, I simply sat there listening to the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Then I did what I had been trained to do my entire professional life. I started following the evidence. As a financial consultant, I knew one simple truth. People who lie successfully rarely stop at one lie. That evening I drove home through Portland's wet streets with my mind racing. Part of me wanted to close the laptop and forget everything. Another part remembered 15-year-old Hannah standing in front of relatives, apologizing for stealing a watch she had never touched. That girl deserved answers. So I kept digging. Within 2 weeks, a pattern emerged. Rebecca had been borrowing money from relatives for years. An aunt loaned her money for what she claimed was a real estate investment. A cousin invested in what Rebecca described as a luxury property partnership. An elderly uncle contributed money because Rebecca promised enormous returns. None of those projects appeared to exist. The numbers were staggering. More than $100,000 had moved through Rebecca's hands. Yet nobody seemed concerned. Because everyone trusted her. Everyone except me. Then something even more troubling happened. My grandfather Walter announced he was updating his estate plan. The news spread quickly through the family. Almost overnight, Rebecca transformed into the perfect granddaughter. She visited Walter every weekend. She brought homemade meals. She accompanied him to medical appointments. She called him every evening. The performance was flawless. Everyone praised her devotion. My mother told relatives that Rebecca had the biggest heart in the family. My father proudly repeated the story to anyone willing to listen. But something felt wrong. For years, Rebecca rarely visited Walter more than once or twice annually. Now she appeared constantly. The timing was too perfect. Too convenient. One Sunday afternoon I drove to Walter's house. The old man was sitting on his porch watching birds gather around a feeder. His smile warmed when he saw me. Unlike most family members, Walter had never treated me like an inconvenience. "Hannah," he said. "You're working too hard." I laughed softly. "And you're still giving advice nobody asked for." His eyes sparkled. For an hour we talked about ordinary things. Gardening. Books. My business. Life. Real conversations. The kind families are supposed to have. Then Rebecca arrived. The moment she stepped onto the porch, her entire personality shifted into performance mode. She hugged Walter dramatically. Asked about his health. Offered to organize his paperwork. Praised him repeatedly. Watching her felt like watching an actress audition for a role. And for the first time, I noticed something else. Walter looked uncomfortable. Not afraid. Just tired. As if he sensed something wasn't genuine but couldn't explain why. That realization stayed with me all the way home. 3 days later, I tried one final time to warn my parents. I called my mother. Carefully. Respectfully. I explained that Rebecca's MBA might not be real. Silence filled the line. Then came the response I should have expected. You're jealous. Just 2 words. Cold. Sharp. Final. When I mentioned the suspicious loans, things became worse. My mother accused me of attacking my sister. My father told me to stop looking for problems. The call ended with my mother hanging up. I sat alone in my apartment staring at the dark screen. 25 years later. Nothing had changed. Rebecca spoke. Everyone listened. I spoke. Nobody cared. 3 nights later, everything changed. I was finishing paperwork close to midnight when my phone buzzed. A new voice message. From Rebecca. I frowned. We rarely communicated. Assuming it was sent intentionally, I pressed play. The first few seconds contained only background noise. Then I heard Rebecca laughing. Not speaking to me. Speaking to someone else. My heartbeat slowed. Then accelerated. Because within moments, I realized something terrifying. The message had not been meant for me. It had been sent by accident. And what I was about to hear would expose the truth behind everything. I listened to the voice message 3 times before I could fully believe it was real. The first time, shock drowned out the details. The second time, anger took over. The third time, I started hearing the truth hidden between every word. Rebecca wasn't alone. A man's voice drifted through the recording. Her boyfriend, Daniel. Glasses clinked in the background. Music played softly somewhere nearby. They sounded relaxed. Carefree. Completely unaware that a single mistaken tap on a phone screen had delivered their conversation directly into my hands. At first, the discussion seemed harmless. Then Rebecca started talking. And my world shifted. I swear, nobody ever checks anything, she laughed. Daniel laughed too. They still think you finished the MBA? Rebecca's answer came instantly. Of course they do. More laughter. I felt my stomach tighten. Then came the next sentence. The funny part is they never even asked for proof. My pulse hammered against my ribs. Outside my apartment window, city lights blurred against the darkness. Inside, every word seemed unnaturally sharp. Daniel asked whether she ever worried about being exposed. Rebecca laughed again. No. Mom worships me. Dad follows whatever Mom believes. Her confidence was terrifying. Not because she was lying. Because she genuinely believed she was untouchable. The conversation continued. Each minute peeled away another layer of the image she had spent years constructing. Then the topic shifted to money. I leaned forward. Rebecca casually admitted she had borrowed money from relatives with no intention of returning most of it. She called it family tax. I actually paused the recording. Family tax. The phrase echoed through my apartment like something poisonous. The people she was talking about weren't strangers. They were elderly relatives. Cousins raising children. People who trusted her. People who loved her. Yet she spoke about them as if they were simply resources waiting to be exploited. I pressed play again. The next revelation hit even harder. Grandfather Walter. The inheritance. The estate. Rebecca's voice became almost excited. He's getting older. The timing couldn't be better. A cold wave moved through me. Daniel asked if she thought Walter would leave her the largest share. Rebecca answered immediately. I'll make sure he does. Silence filled my apartment. For several seconds I forgot to breathe. Then came the sentence that shattered whatever remained of my denial. He always liked Hannah more than Mom realizes. That's why I've been spending so much time there lately. I closed my eyes. Suddenly every recent visit made sense. The homemade meals. The phone calls. The sudden devotion. It wasn't love. It was strategy. A campaign. An investment. Then the conversation took an even darker turn. Daniel joked about how Rebecca always managed to make herself look innocent. What Rebecca said next sent chills down my spine. Please. I'd been doing that since we were kids. She laughed. I blamed Hannah for half the trouble I caused growing up. The room seemed to tilt. Memories exploded through my mind. The stolen watch. The accusations. The punishments. The tears. Rebecca kept talking. I learned early that all I had to do was cry. My hands trembled. Not because I was surprised. Because I finally had confirmation. For 25 years, I had questioned my own memories. Questioned my instincts. Questioned my worth. Now the truth sat in my phone speaker speaking in my sister's own voice. By the time the recording ended, it was nearly 1 a.m. I sat alone in silence. The city outside had gone quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The recording lasted 13 minutes. Yet it felt as though it contained an entire lifetime. Part of me wanted revenge. Another part wanted to delete everything and walk away. Neither feeling lasted. Because beneath the anger was something stronger. Responsibility. If I stayed silent, Walter could be manipulated. More relatives could lose money. More lies could become permanent truths. The next morning I called the one person in my family who had always treated me fairly. My Aunt Claire. She listened without interrupting. Without judging. Without defending Rebecca. When I finished, the line remained silent for several seconds. Then she spoke quietly. Hannah, sometimes protecting a family means exposing the person hurting it. I stared out the window. The clouds were beginning to break apart. Thin rays of sunlight pushed through the gray sky. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Not sadness. Certainty. That afternoon, I created a folder on my laptop. Inside it, I placed the recording. Then I added financial documents. Public records. Screenshots. Evidence. Piece by piece, the truth began taking shape. And as I looked at the growing file, one realization became impossible to ignore. My grandfather's 70th birthday celebration was only 2 weeks away. For the first time in 25 years, the entire family would be gathered in one room. And I had a decision to make. The ballroom fell silent the moment my father stood up. More than 50 relatives filled the country club overlooking the Columbia River. Crystal chandeliers cast warm golden light across white tablecloths and polished glassware. Laughter faded. Conversation stopped. Everyone turned toward the stage. My grandfather Walter's 70th birthday celebration had been perfect so far. Exactly the way Rebecca wanted it. She sat at the front table beside our parents, wearing an elegant emerald dress and the confident smile that had carried her through life. The smile of someone who had never been held accountable. My father adjusted his jacket and tapped the microphone. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Applause followed. He smiled warmly at Walter. Then his eyes shifted toward Rebecca. And suddenly I knew exactly where this was going. Family means everything to us, he continued. His voice trembled slightly. Especially our daughters. For a brief second, hope stirred inside me. Then it died. Rebecca has always been the daughter who makes us proud every single day. The room erupted in applause. Rebecca lowered her head modestly. My mother reached for her hand. Several relatives smiled toward her. Nobody looked at me. Not one person. I sat alone near the back of the room. Exactly where I had spent most of my life. Invisible. The applause eventually faded. My father continued praising Rebecca's achievements. Her education. Her success. Her generosity. Every sentence felt like another stone added to a weight I had carried for 25 years. Then my mother stood and took the microphone. If my father's speech hurt, hers shattered something deeper. Rebecca has always been the heart of this family, she said. Her eyes glistened with emotion. I honestly don't know what we'd do without her. The crowd nodded. Smiled. Agreed. I looked toward Grandfather Walter. Something seemed different. He wasn't smiling. He looked uncomfortable. Almost troubled. As though he sensed a truth hidden beneath the performance unfolding before him. My heart pounded. Inside my purse sat my phone. Inside my phone sat 13 minutes of truth. For one terrifying moment, I considered leaving. Just walking away. No confrontation. No drama. No humiliation. Then I remembered 15-year-old Hannah apologizing for a theft she never committed. I remembered my empty graduation ceremony. The phone calls ignored. The birthdays forgotten. The years spent trying to earn love that should have been given freely. Something hardened inside me. Not hatred. Strength. I stood. The movement was small, but several heads turned. My mother noticed immediately. Confusion crossed her face. Then irritation. Hannah, she called. I didn't answer. I walked calmly toward the stage. The room grew quieter with every step. Rebecca's smile began to fade. My father lowered the microphone. What are you doing? He asked. My hands were shaking. My voice wasn't. I'd like to share something. The silence became absolute. I reached the audiovisual table beside the stage. Earlier that afternoon, I had quietly spoken with the event technician. Now I connected my phone. A large projection screen behind the stage flickered to life. Rebecca stood up. Fear flashed across her face. Real fear. For the first time all evening, the perfect mask cracked. Hannah, she said sharply. Stop. I looked directly at her. 25 years of silence ended in that moment. No. One word. Nothing more. I opened the audio file. 13 minutes. The most important 13 minutes of my life. My thumb hovered over the screen. The room felt frozen. My mother started moving toward me. Rebecca took a step forward. My father looked confused. Grandfather Walter slowly rose from his chair. The entire family watched. Waiting. Breathing. Wondering. Then Walter spoke. His voice was quiet. Yet somehow it carried through the entire ballroom. Let her finish. Everything stopped. My mother froze. Rebecca froze. Even the room itself seemed to stop breathing. Walter looked directly at me. For the first time in years, I didn't see pity in his eyes. I saw trust. My throat tightened. My finger touched the screen. The recording began. Rebecca's laughter echoed through the speakers. Clear. Sharp. Unmistakable. I swear, nobody ever checks anything. The color drained from Rebecca's face. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Because after 25 years of being ignored, the truth was finally speaking for me. And there was no stopping it now. Rebecca's laughter filled the ballroom. Then her lies followed. One by one. Like dominoes falling. Nobody spoke as the recording played through the speakers. The elegant birthday celebration transformed into something else entirely. A courtroom. A reckoning. A truth that could no longer be hidden. I never finished the MBA. Gasps echoed across the room. Several relatives exchanged stunned looks. My mother's face turned pale. My father stared at Rebecca as if he were seeing her for the first time. The recording continued. I borrowed the money because they were stupid enough to give it to me. An elderly aunt lowered her eyes. One cousin shook his head in disbelief. Then came the inheritance. The only reason I'm spending time with Grandpa is because I want the biggest share. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Grandfather Walter didn't move. He didn't blink. He simply listened. Every sentence carved deeper into the silence. And then came the final blow. I blamed Hannah for things my whole life. Nobody ever questioned me. All I had to do was cry. The recording ended. The room remained frozen. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody knew what to say. Then Rebecca exploded. She manipulated this. Her voice cracked. Her hands trembled violently. She recorded things out of context. She's jealous. She's always been jealous. But the confidence that once made people believe her was gone. Destroyed. Because everyone had heard the truth directly from her own mouth. My mother looked at Rebecca. Then at me. Then back at Rebecca. Tears streamed down her cheeks. For the first time in my life, she looked lost. Completely lost. My father sank into a chair. The strong, quiet man who had spent decades following the family narrative suddenly looked 20 years older. Rebecca kept talking. Kept explaining. Kept blaming everyone except herself. But nobody was listening anymore. The performance was over. Grandfather Walter slowly stepped onto the stage. The ballroom immediately fell silent. His voice was calm. Steady. Powerful. I have spent 70 years learning how to recognize character. He looked directly at Rebecca. And tonight I learned that I failed to see yours. Rebecca began crying. Real tears this time. Not the carefully controlled tears that had always rescued her from consequences. These were tears of panic. Walter turned toward me. His eyes softened. Hannah. Just hearing my name spoken with respect nearly broke me. I owe you an apology. The room stared. I saw pieces of this for years. I saw how often you were overlooked. I convinced myself things would improve. His voice faltered. They didn't. A lump formed in my throat. 25 years. 25 years of wanting someone to notice. Someone finally had. Walter straightened his shoulders. My estate plan will be changed. The announcement sent another wave through the crowd. Any inheritance intended for Rebecca will remain in trust until every debt is repaid and every lie is corrected. Rebecca collapsed into her chair. My mother covered her face. My father lowered his head. For the first time, consequences had arrived. Not through revenge. Through truth. 3 weeks later, life looked very different. Rebecca moved away and stopped answering family calls. Several relatives demanded repayment plans. The loans were real. The debts were real. The lies were real. There was no escaping them anymore. My father called me every Sunday. Not because my mother reminded him. Because he wanted to. The first time he did, neither of us knew what to say. But healing rarely begins with perfect words. Sometimes it begins with showing up. My mother eventually called too. She cried. She apologized. Not for one moment. 4 years. For choosing favorites. For ignoring my pain. For making me feel invisible. Forgiveness didn't happen overnight. Some wounds need time. But for the first time, honesty existed between us. And honesty can grow where denial once lived. The biggest surprise came from Grandfather Walter. He visited my office one afternoon. Not to discuss family drama. Not to discuss inheritance. He wanted to learn about my business. The business nobody had ever asked about. For 3 hours, I showed him what I had built. The consulting company. The employees. The clients. The success. When I finished, he sat quietly for a moment. Then he smiled. A proud smile. "Hannah," he said softly, "you were never the family mistake." Tears blurred my vision. Because in that moment, the greatest plot twist of my life finally became clear. The daughter everyone treated as weak had built the strongest life of all. Not because anyone helped her. Because she never gave up. For 25 years, I thought the heaviest thing I carried was my family's disappointment. I was wrong. The heaviest thing was my silence. And the day I finally put it down, everything changed. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments whether you've ever felt invisible inside your own family. Your story matters more than you know. And if you enjoy stories about truth, justice, resilience, and second chances, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Stillwater's Payback. You never know which story might remind someone that their voice deserves to be heard.